Okay, so I appreciate the turnout we have this morning for our AI panel. I think it's part of Integrity Week, and this is probably one of the most questionable things we have when it comes to what is integrity. So we've got a exciting panel of faculty, industry, and students up here to help us talk about where AI sits in the scope of integrity. We're not only going to talk from a student faculty perspective, but also from a business perspective. There's a survey out. If you didn't have a chance to do that, I have some data to share from it, and we'll talk about some things we're just hearing from industry. So we have a few slides to start with, and then we'll go ahead and just open it up to a Q&A panel. So hopefully you have tons of questions because we want to keep this as engaging as possible. If not, I know we have some people on this panel who can probably talk for a full hour. So we can definitely keep it moving. So just a kind of to set the bar of where we are, we presented myself and Dr. Artsy to President Mueller on Monday. I think we did it Monday. And I think he found it interesting. In fact, he wanted some of the slides shared with him, probably more from Dr. Artsy than my part. But we have here at GCU some accepted tools. We know students are using Grammarly, we know students are using Office, and we know students are using Adobe Suite. What's happening is all of those are adding components for AI into it, which make them maybe now become questionable tools that we use in the classroom. I know that Microsoft is adding the ChatGPT engine to the Office, or at least a version of the ChatGPT engine to their Office rollout. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen, if that'll be this year or next year, but gray area is going to rise. We have tools that we already know might be cheating. GitHub Copilot, obviously ChatGPT, open source, Vance, Copy AI. And then we have things that we know are definitely cheating. The Chegs, the student documents, Course Heroes, and GitHub from a coding perspective are where students are going and blatantly copying and pasting right over to their homework. Sometimes they're even changing information inside of it. So that's the landscape we have. We have some tools that are going to talk about where they can find out if they're cheating, but we don't really have one type of that right now. Oh yeah, sorry. So if you have a second, a few seconds, these are discussion questions that came out of one of our technology classes. It's a legitimate question. Some of these up here were written by humans, taken right out of the grade book. Some of these were written by AI tools. With the short form, I think you're going to find it's a lot harder to determine which ones are AI and which ones are not AI written. I mean, just looking at them, you don't see a lot of difference between them. We've, one of the students up here, or the student up here, Reese and I are actually looking to take this beyond just the discussion questions and look at papers. When we talk about like a longer form paper, like a 2 or 3 page paper, and eventually look at technology projects with coding as a background with them. So that's the answer. I don't know if you had a chance to go through it right now, but using a tool like GPT-0, which is designed to detect whether it's AI, the top one, it said this text is likely written by AI, and it was correct. That one was written by AI. The bottom one says the text is likely written by a human, but there are some sentences with little perplexities. It was correct about that. The two other ones, one of them I thought was written by human, it's wrong. That was written by AI. And the bottom one, most likely, the bottom one was also AI generated, and that one is likely with no notice about some sentences with perplexities. So it's not 100% accurate. And we were just talking a little while ago, there are other tools out there. I think what you're seeing is an escalation in the AI tools, and what's happening is some of these tools that are supposed to be detected are trying to keep up. Same thing that happened with cybersecurity. The bad guys are trying to break in, the cybersecurity people are trying to stop it. It's a constant war. I think this is going to be an ongoing trend for the next, could be forever, but at least for the next couple of months and years, you're going to see this stuff. I don't think ChatGPT or those tools were specifically designed to create problems with academia, but the result is it is. I mean, that's why we're having some of these discussions. So these are some observations from students when we just talk in general. So students are talking about how to use it on Discord. I mean, Discord is one of our primary students, at least in tech or tools and technology where students are communicating. The bottom one is probably the most scariest. Of course, I use it to make school easier, but I don't use it to cheat. I don't think students know how they want to classify the tools that are being made available or that they can find access to. So that's where this discussion is going to go. Okay, Dr. Artsy, you have some slides, and you can actually use the clicker. You can put that on my hand. So.
Morning.
Did I open the wrong slide? Or is that the last one? Just you. Shoot.
Nothing.
I think I put it. It's
not responding.
Oh. There we go.
So I have very strong opinion about what I claim is wrongly called AI. There is no such thing as artificial intelligence. It doesn't exist. How many of you students have written some code in your life? Doesn't matter what kind. Have you ever used an if statement? If something, then something. That's all programming is. No matter what you think you're writing on the front end, at the end, it becomes a deterministic set of instructions, which are then converted into binaries, numbers, stored on some register on a computer. All programming is shifting numbers from one register to another. There's nothing intelligent about it. The only thing a computer can do is what I call SI, is simulating intelligence. We are creating a false expectation by telling the uninitiated and uneducated that somehow these computers are intelligent. They're not. They're just mimicking what others are doing. So the summary of the problem in the context of what we're talking, education has evolved significantly, but slowly over the last 200 years. If you were to look at a classroom from 200 years ago, you wouldn't see much difference. There will be some so-called expert sitting in front of the class only because they had access to written material where the other people didn't. And students come to class, they listen, they take some notes, they submit homework. At the end, there's a test, and you graduate, and you get those funny robes on you, and there's a thing, and you call it whatever title. Okay. In the meantime, technology has mutated frequently, starting with the invention of the wheel. Every few number of years, decades, centuries, there's been a mutation. There hasn't been a mutation in education, and this is what we need right now. In computer science, we have the concept of garbage in, garbage out. You're going to enter garbage into the system, you're going to get garbage out, unless we mutate. Example, during COVID, we had Zoom, we have working from home. That's a mutation. We had teaching, all of a sudden it got validated. It's okay to work from home. It's okay to do, synchronous class. Everything that we said it's too expensive. We can't do it. We did it, and who did it best? GCU. GCU mutates survival of the fittest. A lot of other colleges went out of business. We grew. We kept increasing salaries without increasing tuition, and our enrollment has grown because we mutated. We accepted that fact that we have to mutate. Here's another example. I had an exercise in class. I said, create a movie database to use in the recommender system. And what do people do? They have to go to, let's say, an IMDb database, get a list of movies, but they don't have the ratings there. So for ratings, you have to go to, I don't know, Green Tomatoes or some other site, and then match the ratings. So it's about an hour exercise. So these are the steps. But with ChatGPT, I said, generate a list of 20 movies, include movie title, director, genre, release year, rating, everything. It actually gave me a list of real movies. I don't know if the ratings are fake or not, but that's not the point. The point is I needed a data set to do an exercise in class to analyze the data without wasting an hour. This was 2 minutes. So, and the little code in Python to load this data. So I'm looking add AI, or what wrongly is called AI. I'm going to use the term so we don't confuse. It's an amplifier, an accelerator, and a time saver, just like mechanized agriculture. It's a time saver. You don't know what that is on the left, but those in the 50s, in their 50s and older, remember microfiche. When I was a student and I needed to write a paper, so I graduated with my undergrad in 1986, only because I went to the military first. But and you needed a paper, then you went to the library, asked the librarian if they had microfiche, so like if they look like the film negatives. I don't know how many of you have seen a film in your life. Soon nobody will know what clockwork, means. And now you have the library. You can access, so is this cheating? Just because I'm saving a few days and within minutes? And what this does, in those days, research was different. I had to look for the sources, get an idea of what's going on in that field, and then write a paper about it. Now, I don't care what the field says. I write a paper about anything I want because I know there will be some resources that will agree with me. And then if I want to write the opposite, I find the resources. I'm a graduate student here at GCU, and I'm getting a master's in clinical mental health counseling. And all the papers, I treat them as opinion paper. I don't care what's expected because I can justify any opinion in the world. Why? Because there's so much pressure in academia to publish. If you're in a tenure track in university, not GCU, we don't have that concept here, but let's say the SU or U of A, you look at what has been published, you can't publish the same thing, so you take a different opinion, so you can publish something, so your boss say, yeah, okay, you're filling your publishing quota. So now we have opinions about everything, and it's accessible within seconds. So is it cheating? I don't know. So SI, again, amplifier and accelerator at scale. If you heard President Mueller talking often, he uses that phrase that at GCU, we don't do anything that doesn't scale. That's an opportunity to scale. So when we don't use SI, students, what do they do the research? They go to Google Scholar, to GitHub, some tutorials, some user manuals, and find the relevant ones, then complete an assignment. What does AI do? Go to the same exact sources, except it does it faster. So you go to the office hours, you ask your professor, can you explain me, give me some pointers how to write that paper. The person next to you goes to the professor, can you give me some pointers? Now you all heard the professor's pointers from the same source, and you're writing the same paper. Is it plagiarism? No, you got it from the same source. How is that different than this? Okay. So it searches for you, presents the most relevant ones, and you complete the assignment. It's the same sources. How is that cheating? This takes hours, this takes minutes. So now we have time, grab a coffee, go some jogging, or talk about other stuff. It makes your life better. I asked DALL-E to generate a picture about the elephant in the room, which is AI. So it did that. That's an elephant in the room. Then I asked it to generate an image. It's not the greatest. That's the elephant in the room. That's a photorealistic image of students in the act of cheating on essay assignments by using artificial intelligence software in the dorms while the professor wearing the suit is helpless in class. And it did that. Okay. So again, it's accelerating, it's amplifying. Nobody is accusing anyone today for cheating by using calculator in the physics exams. We just modify the way physics exams are so that either the calculation itself is not that significant, or we just allow everybody to use calculator. Okay, those are OpenAI generated. So what is the solution to the fear? We're all scared of things we don't know. You know, we have formed ChatGPT committees as if ChatGPT was the only thing. There's Baidu from China, Google DeepMind, there's AI21. Bing now has invested billions in OpenAI and others. So there's GPTJ. It's open source, much better than ChatGPT in generating code, free download. So, you know, why be afraid of it? You have to embrace it. We as a school have to modify all the assignments. In my class, all the DQs have become irrelevant. I'm not even asking students to do DQs anymore because there's no point. I'm just giving them full points for the DQs. We're doing the DQs exercise in class. So I'm asking students to develop, for example, a voice recognition before all this happened, design and develop voice recognition application that can perform an action upon identifying the speaker. But now that we have all these tools, I'm asking them, you know, do it 2 or 3 ways, deploy it on a microcontroller, show me the video how you do it, test it, compare it, measuring, discuss it. Every team member on that project will record the video, demonstrate how it works and talk. So we have a more comprehensive project than just, you know, write some code and submit. So that's how I'm personally adapting to that. We are, I'm in a weird position in a way that I am teaching classes about AI, like Mike Sarlo here, it's teaching neural networks. We're teaching about the technology that powers things like ChatGPT. So what am I supposed to tell to students? You know, I hope you graduate and get a job doing this, but no, you're not allowed to use it. Okay. I don't want to sound hypocritical or stupid. There's another thing that can happen. I grew up, I was born in Romania. I was a proud communist in my youth. In the 60s, there was a trend worldwide. It seemed that it's a matter of maybe decades where the entire world will become communist, at least the view from Eastern Europe. And what happens under communists, when things are censored and not available, an illegal market is emerging. So this is what potentially could happen in colleges. You'll have students in humanities that are afraid of technology, maybe not all, but some, and there's students in technology who are a little bit less afraid or more savvy, so we'll have a digital divide where they say, go to Bob Neo in room 20, for $20, he'll hook you up with a paper. And that's what's going to happen, and I'm sure things like this are already happening because I'm in tune with my students. So we need to have it all in the open. It is on us to completely revamp what education looks like, what the purpose of education, how we assess, how we test, how we teach. I'm using ChatGPT daily to create outlines for lesson plans, activities, practice questions, interview questions, and so on. So I don't see any issue with that. This is it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and see the rest of our panel up here. So if you want to introduce yourself, if you have any statement you want to make now before we open up the questions. So we'll start with Reese over there.
Yeah, so I'm Reese Simo. I'm a current student at GCU and I'm a senior year in the software development program. And I don't know, the thing I kind of want to say is I feel like AI, or I like to call it kind of like you, algorithmic intelligence, because it's just an algorithm. I think that AI is basically, best way to describe it, it's just a fancy machine with glue and scissors. It just cuts up statements and then glues them together and then gives them to you. So I think that most of the like text AI stuff, it's basically just a new version of the search engine. And I think that's where like Bing just came out with the launch of, soon to be launch of Bing GPT. And that's going to basically allow you to ask Bing questions and then Bing is going to use ChatGPT to answer them for you. And that's basically kind of how I see AI, or especially writing AI. It's just grabbing all the content and then formulating it in a different way that's a lot easier to view than Google or Bing by itself.
So my name is Thomas Simo, so I am his father, but that's not why I'm here. I actually have worked at Microsoft for 20 years, worked at Amazon for a short time as well, but I've been doing AI before it was called AI. I did speech recognition for about 8 years in my career. I've done digital signal processing, and more recently I've been doing vision-based AI. And I agree, like people, I think there's this magic that people assign to AI as if it's, people think of Terminator and it's now sentient and it's going to destroy the world, which I'm not saying maybe it doesn't at some point, but at least that's a really long way off because it can barely do basic things now. Is it impressive? It's very impressive, but it's only doing things that it's learned. And that's what my definition of an AI is, trying to simulate brain function and understanding kind of basic senses that we as humans take for granted. Things like sight, sound, complex language, communication, both speaking out, hearing, and interpreting what people say. That's the kind of stuff that I focus on. And so I think when you think about it like that, it's almost just mimicking. It's mimicking what has been pre-programmed, and it's really the term garbage in, garbage out. And we have a term we've been using a lot more called hallucination. And hallucination is when the AI goes down a path that you may not even quite understand how it got there, but it's hallucinating based on data that it didn't understand. And so this is where you get DQs, where you ask a student about some concept, let's say linked lists. And I've seen some of the real students, they also hallucinate because they don't know what they're talking about. They go down a path that they are confused because they had some bad data put into them. AI is no different. It can hallucinate and go down a path and describe a linked list, and it may be totally wrong. But it's no different between the machine. And this is why, and humans, this is why it's so hard to, I think it's going to be a cat and mouse game for a long time to even detect this kind of thing. So that's my opening statement.
I'm Mike Sarlo. I teach at CSET in the computer science area. I'm almost lockstep with Professor Artsy on a lot of his opinions with ChatGPT and the tool that it is. It's fast Google or Bing. Google now is a noun, by the way. I mean, it's all encompassing. But what I look at it in a different area, and it goes to the mutation of how we teach and the institutions themselves. Why do students, the students that do cheat, and I've had people turn in Chegg things without even taking the other person's name on it. So sometimes they're not that clever when they cheat. This makes them much more clever. But why do students, that if a student is going to cheat, why do they cheat? And part of that is coming more into fold with this technology because it allows it a little more prevalent. And sometimes there's that tick that isn't really checked when they're making that conscious decision. It's a lot of it. Some assignments are just boring. They don't have a direct they're not relevant to the student and what they believe is important to the students' growth. Right? Okay, we'll go back to the linked list. And we got it right. It's a single linked list in C++. Okay, that's an assignment. And they don't see the relevancy. It doesn't feel that they need to put the effort into it to learn. Right? And then so where are we hamstrung as instructors? We're hamstrung as instructors because we have to stay accredited. We teach with our rubric, we grade with our rubric. You know, that's our gold standard. We grade, or we're supposed to. I break some rules, but I'm leaving the end of the semester. We pick favorites. No, wait. Quiet things about again. So we have those things, but what can we do? How do we make like Professor Artsy does? He's using ChatGPT to enhance the classroom. And okay, we're going to make discussions out of these because we know the answer. How do we expand on that? I can use ChatGPT to generate meaningful assignments for each one of them. Individualize my instruction. I can differentiate between my classes. I have students that when they start, they struggle because some of our concepts are difficult. If you haven't put the time in, the first semester will come in and they promise themselves every week they were going to start a project to get better at coding. And then the day they start that project is the first day of class, the first assignment, and they're so far behind. Right, so we have to differentiate. We have to bring those students up. We can use this to make meaningful assignments. And that's what we have to start looking at. We have to start looking at how are we going to use this technology? And it's not, it's a suggestion, right? I can't just say generate an assignment for Bill, right? Because he doesn't know. Wait, and I'm gonna give you a name, Bill. Here, Bill.
That's my actual name.
Yeah. That's it. I'm going. I've just passed the turning test. Bill, my name, I'm shocked. You're like. We will end up like, so now, Bill, very close. And it does know your name now, following you. We're with So but I can't, 'cause I have to know what your needs are, right? So that tool will allow me to create meaningful assignments. And I can bend those meaningful assignments around my assignment that I would need, right? I can make that assignment fit the rubric, I can make that assignment fit, because it's difficult for instructors to create assignments that are meaningful for you, because we have assignments, right? Here's your syllabus. There's no syllabus. But we have the syllabus, so we have, oh, what are we doing for benchmark 1? And sometimes those aren't meaningful. So you're like, God, right? So that's the way I look at it. I look at it like, hey, how can I make you invest in yourself so that you learn this concept, right? Because sometimes the assignment just doesn't have enough rigor that you're like, or you don't understand it. So we can use that. And that's where I use it in my class.
Okay, so we've heard from all of us. I can definitely keep the conversation going, but let's turn it over to you. What questions do you have about anything that you've heard so far?
What is visual-based AI? What do you mean by that?
So it's just using, can't like think of it as fixed point cameras or the camera from your phone. So the stuff we work on is, imagine you give me a picture and then I can describe that picture in words. Like it's two people holding hands walking on the beach with the sun setting. We also do face-based. So when you use your face to unlock your phone, which probably everyone does, we do that. We do that for Windows. It's called Windows Hello. We also have third parties that use our tech to basically do biometrics on the face. We also do like fixed point cameras, so we can we can track everybody in this room, and then we can determine how many people are here, how are they moving around, interacting with each other. So yeah, anything visual, like what you would see with your eyes, and then interpret the world around you, kind of transferring the physical world into the digital space, and then being able to reason on that. That's what we call visual-based AI.
Yeah, I'm not a technology major, so forgive me if this is an uneducated question, but is there a system of checks, like how does it know that the information that's given you is accurate? Is there any way to ascertain if it is scholarly, if it is well researched, anything like that? Or
Can I-
Can you slide over a little bit? Because we got it right now. Thank you.
Pardon my language. It should, because a million flights are not wrong. That's how it knows.
Well, it's either short of the answer. It's a whole lot of time. We're all waiting for the.
Here's a follow-up. Let's take 1,000 students at GCU. We're going to ask ChatGPT questions about about GCU. Each time we don't like the answer, we give it a thumb down. We can shape the public sentiment about GCU by doing that. At ASU, we'll have 1,000 students asking questions about GCU and giving them a thumbs up. A thumbs up is each time there's something negative. So it's just like Twitter. We have Twitter fake bots that insert themselves in the conversation. You can ask ChatGPT to create a whole conversation on Twitter, then upload it to Twitter. So you can't trust anything.
But it's kind of like the internet, right? When if you take search, when you search on Google or Bing today, do you trust everything you see? How much percentage do you actually trust? maybe 30%. I'm a non-trusting person, so maybe 5% of what it's like all you're doing is the technology is getting more advanced and it's hiding more from you. So instead of you seeing the web pages, it's now created this knowledge source to make it way more magical and impressive. And you type it in and you're like, answer this question, and it comes back with the data. Like, wow, this is amazing. But the world's knowledge it's true and some of it's false. And so it's going to do the best it can to assume it knows what you're asking and then answer it in an accurate way. And this was my point about, we call it hallucinating when it gets it totally wrong. And you can ask it just basic questions about the history of the United States. And so usually I'll say it'll get it wildly right. And sometimes it gets it wildly wrong. And sometimes it gets it just wrong enough where it's wrong if someone who really knows what they're doing and knows the subject really well can figure it out. But most people are like, oh, that's right. There was actually Google, so that this is an explosive industry and it's been going insane, I would say, even the last 6 months. But Google just did an announce for their equivalent for, think of it as ChatGPT for their engine. And I think this was only 4 or 5 days ago. And in their launch, they talked about space, and they asked it a question and returned back 5 prompts. And then it hit the media because one of their 5 prompts was woefully wrong of what the answer to the question. And so you just have to be really careful, just like when you do a search on the internet.
They actually hit that live stream because it was so embarrassing. They like deleted all evidence of it off the internet because it was such a big stumble with their AI.
So the hallucination part, I want to talk a little bit about that, and we'll come back to questions. So hallucinations, they got it wrong. But could it be that hallucination is right and we as humans just didn't digest it the same way? And there's a potential that what AI finds might be a totally different perspective on something and actually turn out to be true?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the vast knowledge of the internet, you know, you ask a question, I guess hallucination is also a point of view, because it could be some bias. Somebody could call hallucination, it said something it didn't like, even though that thing is true. So I don't know, I think we're probably entering an era similar to the political polarization of just politics. There's the polarization of what do you believe is true and what do you believe is false. And so I guess it gets into that kind of problem. But I go back to, you know, the garbage in, garbage out. It's this vast amount of information, and a hallucination technically is just, it went down a path that it learned from somewhere. And that learning could have been somebody writing some factually incorrect data, and maybe they didn't know, or maybe they willfully knew, and they were trying to like mislead people.
So like if we would have asked it, is the COVID vaccine worthwhile at various points of time? At some points it could have said, yes, it's worthwhile, or some could have said, no, it's going to cause birth defects, or whatever it's going to be. It really depends on the data that's going in and where in the point of history it's got the data from.
Correct.
It also depends on what the programmers are actually doing, because in the back room, everyone wants to make it seem like it's a magical box. You can ask AI anything, but in the back room, there's coders who are dictating to the AI how it works. So this was a big thing with ChatGPT recently, is someone asked it, like, is green energy viable? Like, what's the best way to not pollute the earth? And it said, well, it's the most viable way to do it is just keep using fossil fuels, because fossil fuels actually have, I don't know, less impact currently because green technology costs so much in construction. And so programmers then in the back room changed the answer and told the AI, you're no longer allowed to recommend that side. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, but they basically just said, you only are allowed to say that green energy and green technologies are the way to go. And basically now, anytime you ask that to ChatGPT from OpenAI, it's always going to respond with, well, green energy. And so, I don't know, in the back room, you basically have all these people who are the puppet masters who are dictating how to output it for the end user. And I think that's something we need to discuss and kind of be a little more safe about, because in the end, they're telling the AI what to think, and the AI is going to tell you, and you think it's a magical box that has a lot of wisdom and knowledge, but it turns out, no, it's just telling you what these people with the puppet strings what their morals are and what they want to tell you.
Okay, back to the questions from you guys. What questions you have? So I have a question for you. So Grammarly is a tool that we use to fix our spelling, fix our grammar, right? I would assume we all think that's a legitimate tool. But in our rubrics, we have the ability, one of the checkboxes is, was it written professionally, grammatically correct, and all that stuff. So in essence, by using Grammarly, are we cheating? What do you think?
No.
No, it's not cheating. So why is it not cheating?
It's just the same as like a calculator, it's just a more advanced tool that we use in modern times.
Should it be a rubric in the thing to say that you wrote it correctly? If it's just a tool.
Sorry?
So in a rubric, in your grades, it's one of the boxes is, was it written correct? So if we can use tools like that to write it correctly, should it be a checkbox? Should we be grading you on your ability to write correct?
So are you saying like the teacher is not the one that's deciding? if
No, I'm
it's
saying that
just-
as a teacher, we have a box that has to give you points for writing correctly.
Mhm.
Should we be even having that as a grading component if we can just use tools to get it right 100% of the time?
If we have tools to get it right 100% of the time, no.
Somebody else had a comment in the back?
Yeah, so I think this is a very interesting question, but I do believe a lot of, our school system is set up for, the least, knowledgeable user. We're trying to get as many people in the college as possible, so we have to have checks in place to make sure you don't just walk into college and get away. So I believe that's what that box is doing, because it's super easy to get proper grammar, like grammar and stuff. But if you don't put in the work, you shouldn't get an A on it. So if I put in a sentence, don't use any of these tools and stuff, I put a sentence that literally cannot be read. Did I get full points on that? No. Could I got full points if I spent 20 seconds? Yes. But I do think there is that thing where we have checks and balances in the schools to prevent people from getting good grades without doing good work. We do have that from time to time.
So Dr. Archie talked about like a separation where you have the haves and have-nots. You know how to use Grammarly, you can get 100 points on that, 100% on that. But people that don't know how to use Grammarly have to work at it. Is that creating a divide? I don't know if Dr. Archie, if you want to talk about it.
Well, let him ask first,
Oh,
and then
sure.
I'll.
Well, I was thinking then it's just a matter of learning to integrate it into education rather than keep it vague. You know, have the education be on, using these tools alongside the things that we're doing, you know, and that levels the playing field. You know, that makes what he was talking about not a problem anymore.
So let me ask you a question. What's the purpose of language?
We communicate.
How many of you speak more than one language? Some. So I was an immigrant 3 times in my life. I have an accent in every language I speak. And I travel the world. And in the UK, they like to make fun of Americans the way they butchered the English language. And like some here like to make fun of people in Jamaica the way they butchered the English language. But we can understand each other. How this grammar rule got set? Who is the boss of grammar? There's no such thing. So you could say, as long as you understand what I'm saying, who cares if there are rules? So, you know, grammar, you know, who cares? You know, I write the way I want to write. That's how I want to express myself. It is my freedom of speech. I want to speak this way. Where does it say in the Constitution or in any legal article that I'm not allowed to say this greenhouse? Do I have to say this is a greenhouse? Who cares? You understand what I want to say? So, because I travel worldwide, I always have to use all kinds of gestures, and I speak Romanian, so I can get by in Italy and Spain and so on. I never learned Spanish or Italian, but I can get by. So I don't know why our colleges so insist on, or APA style, Association of Psychology. Why would that Association of Psychology dictate how we write citations in a mechanical engineering paper? Why? So I understand standards. I'm opposed to them. It's just like I hate ties, and they have those things, you know, no tie, no entrance, or no shirt, no service. But it's not because I'm a rebel, it's because nobody was able to give me a logical, well-crafted answer. Why do I have to write the sentence one way or another way? I write Romanian, I'm fluent in Romanian. A friend of mine is from Moldova, which used to be part of Romania. She speaks Romanian too, but they write with Russian letters, Cyrillic alphabet, same language, Cantonese and Mandarin, same thing, different languages, same symbols. Sumerian and Akkadian couldn't understand each other. One is a Semitic language, one is not. Sumerians invented the writing, the cuneiform writing. Akkadian took their cuneiform writing, different language, couldn't understand each other. The symbols are the same. So who cares?
Oh, I have a thing on that, with the using it. In the boxes, this way professionally. If you're using Grammarly, and I'm dyslexic, I can't spell and say my life. And if you've ever sat through one of my classes and sat through a PowerPoint, you're just going, and I'm so old that doesn't bother me. You misspelled "and," I'm like, I misspelled "and" 17 times today. So if you see it, so I have to use it, right, in a professional setting. I have any professional planning, I can recognize well-written sentences. I can't spell them, but I can recognize. But what that has helped me do in using Grammarly and things like that for as long as I have, is it reinforces and trains me to write correctly, right? So if Grammarly is helping you become a better communicator in a professional setting, and it's training you to do that, and you're writing and it's fixing your sentences, and then you're seeing it being fixed, and like, oh, that's how this is supposed to be written in a professional setting, then you're learning from that aspect. So, check the box.
And I think that's interesting, because I think we need to relook at our rubrics, we've talked about those areas.
You
like
train yourself. We want you to be good at it. That's important in a professional setting. It really, really is. You can be hired by being a good writer. But if you're not learning how to become a good writer, we in one class, 435, we have to write some papers. Oh, no, in a cybersecurity class I taught, they had to write papers, a lot of papers. And they had to be APA formatted, and I didn't teach them how to write well, because that's not what the job is, cybersecurity, right? But I want them to be good writers. So if they're using this and they're learning how to be good writers because it's fixing some of the grammatical errors, they're going to make less of those errors when they see that. That's the reinforcement of the using.
So I would actually say I would keep the box. Communication is one of the most important things that we do in the industry. And I don't care what tool you use, if you use Grammarly or whatever, if you can't communicate, you're not going to work out in the industry. And so I think the school should be doing a better job of teaching students what tools. If you have dyslexia, great. What tools will help you? I have one of my kids who has severe dyslexia. So great, he uses Word, because when you write in Word, it gives you sentence structure as well as spelling. And it's interesting because I feel like, and maybe I'm making myself look old, but I remember the same debate with word processors when they first came out. I remember I was somebody who had one of the first computers in the early days, and having access to that to write papers, and everyone was still doing typewriters. And then it was a big deal in our high school when they got a mainframe that you could submit your paper to the mainframe. And then the next day it would come back to you with spelling errors and grammar corrections and stuff like that. And everyone debating at that time, oh my goodness, is it going to make people stupider? Are they not going to be able to spell anymore? Are they not going to be able to construct basic sentences? No one even talks about that anymore. It was the same thing when I got my calculator. I was the first student to get I don't know what you'd even call it today, but a programmable calculator. In those days, it was like you can do 2 + 2 =, and that was basic function. That was all you could do. And I was writing coding in my calculator. I was writing like assignments in there and all kinds of crazy stuff. And no one else, everyone at that time was the explosion of the TI 82s and 85s. Everyone's like, oh my goodness, it's going to change everything. Everyone's going to cheat. What did we do? We adapted, and it makes those people who use those calculators more useful in work, because they're not focused on the basic functions. And those who know how to use those advanced functions of calculators make them just that more valuable to the industry. So I'm a big believer, you know, ChatGPT, OpenAI, we have a strong partnership at Microsoft with them, and we've been doing that stuff, working with them for several years. But, you know, I was in a meeting just yesterday, actually, where we were struggling with this marketing thing. And, you know, one of the people on my team's like, I just threw it in ChatGPT and this is what it came up with. I'm like, wow, that's way better than anything any of us have written. Let's just go with that. So like, I think it's, the education should be teaching students how to use these things effectively. But I get the point about where does ethics come in? There is a line called cheating. If you basically put it in ChatGPT, copy it out, paste it, and you're done, that's a problem. If you don't change the name, that seems like a big problem too.
Read it.
So I think that it's the school, there's a lack of, I think, integrity out there, and the schools need to teach integrity and teach how to use these new tools, but also where's the line?
Before we get to your question, so, when we were running our first discussion questions, looking ChatGPT and student writing one, the most common thing we found was faculty could identify the GPT one because they were written grammatically correct and actually had content in it that was pretty robust. So students started to figure out that if you type, answer this as a sixth grader or with grammatically errors in it, and ChatGPT will follow some of those instructions, you get by those too good of answers and start leading into it. Now that, to me, is a blatant attempt to cheat. If you're purposely trying to cheat something to give you an answer to get by somebody understanding it, is that a line that we need to worry about?
I think we deserve that if we ask students this kind of questions.
Okay,
Hmm.
you have a question?
I'm just thinking, I mean, the argument I've heard a lot, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I want to get your opinion on it, is with the use of these tools growing, and you mentioned, like the people who know how to use these tools end up being the ones that are more useful in the workplace. Do you think there's any correlation between using these tools and dependency on them? And if so, is that a problem long term?
So I think personally that the dependency that you're talking about, that's coming from cheaters in academia. Someone who's going to write a paper just by using ChatGPT or any of these other AIs and then just submit it, that's dependency on the tool, and they're not going to fly in their industry. They're going to basically get called out as soon as they enter an interview because they don't know what actually is going on. They're just using it to get by. So they can have everything look amazing. They can have the best LinkedIn, best resume, and best cover letter, all generated through AI. But at the same time, they're not going to have any of the basic knowledge. So yeah, they're going to have a dependency on that. And I think that's the difference between using it in academia and teaching how to use it, and then someone just trying to use it for everything. Is you're going to be able to either get a dependency on it, not be able to go anywhere because you don't actually know anything, or it's going to augment you because you know the basics, you know how it works. And so you're skipping, instead of going slowly through the first 5 steps, you're just having the AI automate the first 5 steps. You do that, you already know how to do. So if the AI messes up anything, you can fix it, and then you can get to step 6 and keep going.
Let's see, you don't know a world without internet, and you don't know a world without cell phones. I know a world without phones. When I need to play with somebody, go, next door and knock on the door. Hey, can you come out and play? You send a chat. The concept of play date, didn't exist before. Right? You just knock on the door. Your kids won't know a world without VR and without AI embedded. They'll have no idea. Right now, I have a niece. She's a teenager. She said, "How did you go to the mall when you were in high school without a cell phone and your parents didn't know where you are?" First of all, there was no mall when I was in high school. We used to go by the river to catch lizards. And we didn't fall off a tree and break a leg. We didn't have a childhood, and that was the.
I think there's an opportunity trade-off for everything, every new advancement. So you take something as simple. I still remember when you had to go somewhere that you didn't know where you were going, you had to pull out a paper map and like plot, okay, how am I gonna get there? Even going across the city for a 30-minute drive away. Probably no one in this room has ever looked at a map and you just put it in your map program and go. You used to have to plan before you got in your car, and you'd have to spend 30, sometimes 60 minutes on just basic trips around. Have you lost something because you don't know how to do that? I would argue you have. But are you allowed, can you now spend your time somewhere else? Yes. So is that opportunity trade-off better or worse for you? I think on the whole, that example is better. I think you look at all tech, I personally look at all technology advancements that way. You're giving up something. Did we give up something when we went with spell checkers? Obviously, because I am a horrible speller. I always have been. But it helped me communicate more effectively. I've traded something off, but everything one of these, you should look at it from the view of, yes, you are going to trade something off, but is that worth it to you?
So, one of the terms you might be hearing, prompt engineer, that's kind of been big in the buzzword lately with, these ChatGPT tools. So prompt engineer is the ability to put the right question in to get the answer that you want back. Do you think down the road, that's gonna be an interview question? Can you correctly prompt engineer solutions for your job?
Yeah, I mean, they create, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, in the future. I mean, next week is the future. But yeah, because it depends on the job set. Boilerplate code is boring. Nobody wants to write it. We co-pilot it, we can ghostwrite it, we can ChatGPT it, but we can't really create the exact application. Right, but can we generate our basic needs and then mold it with our expertise to do it? But asking the correct questions is important for getting away from and being able to understand what is hallucinations and what isn't hallucination. What is garbage in and what is garbage out? Asking a bad question, you're not going to get the thing that's you're going to be able to learn from the correct areas, right? I look at all these, when you use these tools, if you're using these tools and you're learning from the information you're getting from it, and then you're forming an opinion, is this the right opinion? Is this the wrong opinion? It all boils down to the specific style of question that you would ask these things. You ask a general question, you get some pretty general stuff. Be very specific, you can get very specific. Right? So I think there is a specific talent that you would have to get exactly what you need.
I don't think I'd call it prompt engineering or whatever you're calling it. I would just call it as in the industry, anything that saves time, because time is money, you need to adopt. So I can easily see in the near future something like Copilot being a requirement, because why would you do anything but Copilot? Why would I waste an extra hour to
Can you explain
generate?
Copilot for those that are not?
So Copilot, essentially you can type in like a comment and you can say, I'd like some code that, prompts the user for, XYZ, and then takes an input and stores it over here. And it'll actually auto-generate the code for you. That's really powerful, and that makes you, I kind of think of AI as giving each of us superpowers to do things way faster than we could have ever done on our own. And so I think that will definitely be a requirement in the future, because again, why would you do it the other way? I'd rather do that and then focus on the integration and the hard stuff of coding versus like the basic stuff. And, any employer who's like, oh no, I actually want you to spend multiple hours on the thing that thing does for you for free. How would they ever take it?
So I see a bunch of questions. We've got like 3 minutes left. So, I'm gonna go through some of the statistics from the, survey we did. And then if we want to stick around, you're more than welcome to talk.
I just got a text from my daughter, who is an art teacher. She sent me a picture of 6th graders coding.
So they're learning earlier.
That's all I'm saying. It happens in 6th grade with Copilot and AI and so on. Right now it's right on my phone.
So one of the questions we had was, first of all, everyone has heard of ChatGPT. 70% admit to trying it, to actually getting in, at least putting questions in, which I think is legitimate. If you hear something, you're gonna play around with it. The next question was, do you consider it legitimate for student schoolwork? So 2 people, a really small percentage said it was flat out cheating. The majority of people said it's kind of cheating, but the second most popular one was said it's legitimate. So there's a wide range of students understanding whether it's cheating or not. I don't think we know whether it's cheating. We heard like different opinions up here that it can be and it doesn't. I mean, this was just a blatant answer and they had to pick it. So that was an interesting response. For work, it was overwhelmingly useful tool. So they do not consider it cheating to go get a job or to do your work with it. I think we just heard agreement that that's what you're saying. They need to learn how to use it to be successful in their career. The rest of my stuff is not loading. So anyway, I appreciate you coming. I think there was a bunch of questions still remaining. So I don't know if people have the ability to stick around for a few more minutes to answer those, but with that, I think we'll just kind of wrap it up with everybody.
I have time to say.
Yeah, so if you have questions, maybe we can stick around and answer, talk. So if you have to go, fine. Go ahead. Let's with another question. So you go ahead.
Why has it taken like education to evolve for so long? Like an example I want to use is like, I'm sure mathematics professors would disagree with me, but I don't understand why I have to learn like this whole long process of this equation when I can just put this equation into a calculator and it give me the answer. Like you were talking about like time is money. Like why aren't we teaching students to use the resources instead of focusing like on these basic formats and teaching them to get answers quicker than, you know, just
Like the 2-part answer. There are 2 reasons. Number 1, people are afraid of change. In all walks of life. Number 2, who goes to academia? It's people who like to take their time to think, to philosophize, to debate. These are not the people that are driven by the bottom line. We got the quarterly revenue. We don't care about that. I'm in academia because I like to live inside Wikipedia and talk about everything, every topic. I like ancient history. I like computers. I like psychology. I don't care if there's a financial reward at the end of that. So, maybe we'll change, maybe not. Let's look at this. So there's no emergency to change. That's why.
Another question?
I was just gonna ask, what do you guys think is the right action for schools, like in the current moment, before curriculums have changed at all with AI? Do you think it's fair for them to just flat out ban all AI, or do you think it should be taught?
If you want to get something done, tell the students that they can't do
To that point.
it. They aware. If there's only some sort of network, some virtual network that was private that we could use to get there. We posted the Python front end.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
just
say.
take the API and just run it on inside of Python.
So GCU flat out banned ChatGPT on campus, probably most of you know that. However, they only banned the front end demo. So within like 2 days of the start of the semester of it being banned since last semester, I'm in the software development program. So some of my friends who will go unnamed had developed a workaround. It was like less than 50 lines of code in Python where you could literally sign up for the account off campus and then ping their website through the backend API and basically have all of ChatGPT's functionality on your computer at GCU with the front end being banned. So like there's gonna be workarounds, and even if like you just flat out ban ChatGPT, you're banning all this stuff so there's no workarounds with ChatGPT. There's other ways to access it. The way OpenAI works is they're selling ChatGPT as a service, and then you basically take ChatGPT and you make it work in your program, so then your users of your program can ask questions to the program, and then it goes to ChatGPT and then it replies to you. So even if you flat out ban ChatGPT, you can't ban like all the 1 million AI writer sites that have just sprung up out of nowhere.
So that's creating the haves and the have-nots. People in the business school might not have any idea how to create that tool, but here in technology, we figured out how to do it. So do we have people that are from the business college or other colleges? So you're all from business college? So did you know about tools like that, or when it was locked, you just kind of gave up?
I just use a hotspot on my phone, yeah.
So you found a way around it, you all found a way around it, okay.
Yeah, actually, so kind of intertwined with both that, your question and your question, I feel like the math example goes back to, if you're like a math major and you can't understand the concept, and you know, I've done all calculus and all that, I'm a computer engineer. I've done it once, and I could go back and replicate it if I need to, but in my daily job, would I ever do the long way? Absolutely not. The same way with coding. Do I think someone should get a computer science or computer programming degree without understanding the basics of linked lists? Absolutely not. But should you be doing that long way every time and in C++ manually creating that yourself every time, or just use a library? I feel like you need to understand the basics, do it once, and then kind of do that next level. And that's kind of the question you were asking about, should it all be outright banned? I don't think it should be banned, but if you can't understand basics of it, constructing a sentence, that gets to editing. I think the power of ChatGPT is taking what the output is and then fine tuning it. And I've never had a case where ChatGPT gave me something that I could use straight away. Even that example from yesterday, I had to change it and move it a little bit, but it came up with something far superior than what I'd done on my own, but I still modified it.
To add to that. So we like to call ourselves, we live in the land of the free. So we also have the freedom to be illiterate in this country. And what will happen is those countries in which you don't have the freedom to be illiterate will become the doer, the makers, and will become the users, and will develop a dependency. So this can go across lots of things. You know, how many of you have made chicken soup from scratch? Like starting with a live chicken, like. So that skill has been lost. I enjoyed making chicken soup with my grandma. I used to go outside and I want that chicken. That's it. So the same thing with software, with robotics. You know, there are countries in which you still have to do closed books exam on everything and memorize, and you know, it could be China, South Korea, Japan, and so on, and some Eastern Europe still, you know, lingering from the communist days. And what will happen if, you know, in 20 years, the only way we know how to write code is ask an AI software to write code, but who will remember how to write that AI software to start with? So that's a concern. I don't have an answer to that. I don't want to impose anything, but I believe in creating, you know, in education, there's two camps. There's behaviorists and there's cognitivists. The cognitivists believe that if you put humans in a stimulating environment, their innate curiosity will encourage them to learn. Behaviorists believe that you can teach anybody anything if the punishment is severe enough or the reward is high enough. So I used to be a behaviorist primarily because of military. So that's great for that. You can't become a Navy SEAL by, okay, here, be curious and see if you can learn it. No, it has to be behaviorist, but college has to be cognitivist. We have to create that exciting environment for students so they are interested in learning, even though there's a tool that can do it for them. We cannot lose that capacity as a society.
Any other questions? If not, thank you for coming, and I guess it's kind of wraps. There's one more seminar for Integrity Week at noon or something. Is there something?
Yeah, so at 11 there's going to be a Zoom regarding like job interviewing, integrity and those. So if you guys are interested, let me know. I can give you that.
First question in job interview, always ask if they press charges. Just, do you have any questions for me? And you're like, yeah.
I'm doing that next time I got an interview. I'm like, my professor told me to ask this. It was a very important question.
Good to see you, man. So good. See you in the hall. Thanks. You know, I still haven't gotten the last brother yet. I know he switched out,
Switched out, I know.
but I have.
He's like, I need to get away from this.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't.
Wasn't thinking.
I went to digital design.
So he's gonna be.
Maybe he'll switch to the new game.
Maybe. To be honest, the thing is, he doesn't like coding, so he prefers drawing and stuff, so he.
Code with Copilot and check.
We tried to convince him, we tried everything. I thought he was crazy when he said he didn't like coding. I didn't know he didn't like that, so honestly, I don't.
But I wonder if in the new game program, we can include, like incorporate coding for no programmers.
Yeah.
With Copilot, just
I mean, even
we
if
teach
you-
how to write the right comments.
Even if you just have them teach them like very basic, like links and stuff, make sure they all know the basics, and then say, okay, Copilot can do the rest of the
I
stuff.
asked ChatGPT to program,
This guy's actually a professor.
a first person Unity controller, and he did all that.
Yeah.
And then it